Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about my rejection letter from Clarkesworld. So, Clarkesworld is by the way, it was a very positive experience all around for me, and I grew in respect for Clarkesworld, having got this rejection letter from Clarkesworld. Just wanted to kind of give a summary there. All right, so basically, I am a writer. I really love to write. I've written, and I write a ton. So, I've written, what have I written so far? I've written a lot. So I've written 2 novels. I wrote a novel called Amber Indian 2192. You can listen to that on Audiobooks. It's also available for free through Smashwords. And then also I've written a novel called Gamersgate, which is also available for free through Smashwords. And both of those, are out and running. And so I've written 2 novels. I've written dozens and dozens of articles online about tabletop gaming. So I'm definitely I'm into tabletop gaming, and I've written a lot of articles on tabletop gaming. And then also recently I've been working on short stories. So recently I wrote a short story. I made a goal to write and submit a short story. And so I did that. I wrote a short story that it had science fiction elements, a little bit, maybe, I don't think it's horror, but it has a little bit of a creepy element in it. And it was about 10 pages long. And so, I got this idea, and I blasted it out as a short story. When I say blast, I took 2 months to write it. It was, and like I said, it's about 10 pages long. And after I got done writing it, I sent it to 3 peers, alpha readers, got back their feedback, and then made all those changes in the doc. So I wrote it, I finished it, and then I needed to send it, okay? And so I kind of thought, well, where can I send this, right? So the first place I went was Escape Pod. And the reason why was Escape Pod is a podcast that has that does science fiction stories, and then they turn them into podcasts. So I went over there, and when I went on the Escape Pod, I read their entire guideline on how to submit, and then I went through all the steps to submit, and then their last step says we're not accepting any submissions. So lesson learned. Check to see if they're actually accepting submissions before you take any steps to submit somewhere. So and so I could not submit to Escape Pod, right? So a competitor for Escape Pod is Clarkesworld, and actually I think Clarkesworld may have surpassed Escape Pod in that genre. So Clarkesworld is a science fiction website that has a podcast and has a fiction section where you can go and read content on their site, and they also have a subscription service, right? And the reason why I know about Clarkesworld is, one, I really enjoy reading science fiction short stories, and also Neil Clark, the editor for Clarkesworld, attends PhilCon, which is a writers convention that's in my backyard. It's in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I highly recommend that. If you're anywhere on the East Coast above Washington, D.C., I really feel it's worth the trip. Especially if you can just make the trip in a day, if you can drive to it. It's great. Now, I want to be clear what it is. It's about 300 writers getting together in the maybe 500. But it's relatively small. And getting together in Cherry Hill, New Jersey at a fairly small hotel that has very nice convention space, like a small convention space. But it's great, and a lot of great thinkers get together. They talk about science fiction, they talk about fantasy, they talk about writing. They've started to add in some nerddom areas as well. But Neil Clark has spoken at PhilCon for years, and he is a really robust participant of that convention. And he is very open. So Neil Clark is a gentleman within science fiction. He's well respected by many, many writers. He's well respected by many, many editors. He's well respected by many, many publishers. He's a brilliant guy. He's very, very smart. He's driven. And what he's done with Clarkesworld is really, really exceptional. So I went to submit to Clarkesworld, And I was just blown away by my experience of submitting with Clarkesworld. I won't bury the lead here. I got a rejection letter, but that's why I'm talking today. I got that rejection letter in less than 2 weeks. So the guidelines to submit were very clear. And not only were they very clear, they were very reasonable. There were no hoops to jump through that you're like, ugh, why do I have to do this, right? It was really straightforward. It was like Clarkesworld wanted you to submit, right? And that's not a small thing. It is very hard to take submissions from the outside world, because if you're going to do it reasonably, writers are going to want to know what's going on, right? And I was blown away with how Clarkesworld handled this. They had a really awesome setup where you could submit online, you gave them their story, they had a reader, and they actually had a system online that said, hey, we've gotten your pieces submitted. Now your piece is under review. And then finally you got an email saying, hey, we read your story, it's not a good fit for us. Or I'm sure many other authors have gotten one that says, hey, it's a great fit, we're going to do it. We're either going to put it on our website as a text piece, or we're going to put it on as a podcast. So, but that got back to me within 2 weeks. And you need a real process in order to do that, because there are a lot of writers. And so I'm sure they've had to reject thousands of writers and process hundreds of approvals for other writers that they have chosen. So I was just really blown away with how wonderfully delightful the whole process was for a writer. Because, and here's another reason why I'm talking about this, is I struggle, just like I think many writers struggle with the process of writing, right? And the only question on where you struggle, if you're a writer, you struggle with the process of writing, because it is not easy. It truly isn't. And I think different writers struggle at different points. So some writers struggle to write at all. Like they have an idea and they can't get it out, or when they get it out, they tear up the version they've done. And man, I have seen a lot of writers, and some people really struggle at that first part. I've got to a point where I have no problem writing. I absolutely love writing. And so I really enjoy the process of writing. I really find it, cathartic and enjoyable and challenging. I love it. And then the next one is finishing. Finishing is very hard, very hard. Now, different people have different problems on finishing the writing that they do. And there's a lot of reasons why. My biggest problem with finishing, one, I've gotten to a point where I can finish things, and that's a really big deal for me, because it's really hard. And I think a lot of people, I think a lot of writers struggle to finish something because they want it to be perfect. That's probably the number one thing that stops people from finishing writing projects, is they want it to be perfect. They keep re-editing it, a million different things like that, right? So I have been able to move past that. What stops me from finishing projects is starting new projects. I always have a million ideas in my head, and I'm like, and the excitement for a project can wane before you finish. In fact, almost certainly the excitement for a project will wane before the excitement for a new project spins up. And the reason why is when you start a new project, it's unformed, and you can think, oh, this is the best idea in the world, and because you haven't, woken up to bad breath with it. It's by the way, I've never done that. My wife has wonderful breath. That was just an analogy. Anyway, so that's where I struggle. Now I've gotten past that, and I'm able to finish things now, which is great, right? And but I really struggle with sending. Sending is tough, because that's the part where somebody does what Clarkesworld does, and they say, no, you worked really hard on this, and we don't like it. Now, the reason why I'm taking the time to do this today is I really struggle with sending, and I'm making a commitment to myself that I'm going to send more of my pieces out there to get published in trad publishing, which that means traditional publishing. I like that term. A lot of people hate it. But I'm trying to go, to get things published through traditional publishing, and that means I need to send stuff. And I sent both of my novels out, and I did not get a wide market or a large publisher for either one of those. And that's okay. That's okay. I've actually reaped major dividends from both of those books not monetarily, but in many other ways. And so I'm really proud of both of those books. I really like that I was able to finish them, and it's important to me. So my writing is very, very important to me, and I really wanted to make this video because writing, finishing, and sending are hard. And Clarkesworld does a lot to make the sending as painless as possible for everybody involved. And I was just really, really touched with how eager they were to allow, unsolicited writers to submit to them. Many markets don't do that today. You have to go in through an agent. So the fact that Clarkesworld is dealing with all the problems of allowing unsolicited writers to submit, and then the fact that they have this incredible structure where a writer knows every step of the way what's happening with their work that they've submitted, that took a ton of time and effort to set that up, and I was really, really thankful. So a big thank you to Clarkesworld. Go check out their content. If you're a writer, I would definitely, if you write science fiction, I would definitely suggest submitting to them. Really, really fantastic group. I really like them a lot, and I'm really excited too that I think this was a great, and I have written, finished, and sent in the past, but really I've written a lot and I've finished a lot and I have not sent. So I'm really committing myself to sending more often, and I could not have a better launch to that whole sending process than how Clarkesworld handled it. And I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to Clarkesworld, and also to encourage you out there, if you're a writer, write, finish, send. And also, I just want to take a minute to let you know, if you're afraid of any of those steps, I'm right there with you, brother or sister. It is scary and it's hard, but we do it because we love it, and we do it because we have a story to tell, and we do it because it's important to us. And so I encourage you, and I wish you well on your writing adventures. And I am committing to myself to write, finish, and make sure that I'm sending. Take care.